excited. I've got my buddy Michelle Spiva here today. Michelle does a little bit of everything, so I'm really excited to talk to her. She's an author herself. She's got a podcast. She's been a coach or still coaching. She teaches. She's all kinds of cool stuff. I know. I've wanted to have you on the show since we started because I just remember how powerful your marketing speech was at Smarter Artist Summit a couple of years ago, and just how many people gained a lot from that. So we always get questions about marketing, so we will get to marketing at some point in all this. So hi, Michelle.
Hi, Dan. How you doing? And y'all, I just need y'all to know before we get started, Dan and I go way back. So I'm not going to pretend like Dan is not my friend.
This whole thing is just an excuse for me to get to talk to my friends on a day-to-day basis and get paid for it because it's work. So my evil plan.
I love it.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into all of this, like how you became a writer, what sort of stuff you write? Okay. We'll start with the author angle first.
Sure. Well, I've been blessed to be not in New York. I'm not there yet. A USA Today best-selling author for a few of my pen names, and I mostly write science fiction, fantasy, science fiction romance. When I first started, I didn't know what I was writing, and I came in to contemporary romance. But since I have started moving more into the sci-fi fantasy with maybe romantic elements, and I have been writing professionally since 2009, when everybody was still doing Kindle cookbooks.
Nice. So you're a veteran in all this.
Yeah, self-taught. My genesis in that was out of necessity and desperation. I was in the midst of working on a PhD program in psych at a state university here. And because we were getting state funding, we had to sign a thing that said we wouldn't go work and get not a real job, but a normal 9 to 5, because we were getting stipends from the state, and we were supposed to have all of our time available when we weren't in our own classes to help our grad professors. So we were proctoring tests, research and all of that kind of stuff. And I was grown at that time. And I was not living 5 top on each other in a small apartment. I still had grown people's bills. And out of desperation at night, I was like, I'm writing multiple papers every week. Why don't I just write something that I want? So as part of escapism, and prior to that, I had a stint when I was younger of reading a lot of romance, but then I had migrated into action adventure, science fiction, fantasy, and the like. And I was like, you know what? Let me just take out my angst. And at the time, my poor boyfriend at the time, I was just like, anything he would make me upset with, I would just put it in a book, and I was all over the place. It took off. When the first few books I put out, they were 3,000 words, because to me at the time, that was about how much I could crank out for a paper. Right. So I write a paper, then I write a little story, and they were horrible. My reviews were horrible. But what I found out at that time, no matter how much it hurts, and for anybody that's listening to this, if you get bad reviews, it's going to hurt, but you thank goodness for them, because bad reviews, I say it like this: they are like parades and train wrecks. Everybody stops to see them. And the more they stop and look, the more people are willing to give you a try, because if you can garner any kind of emotional response from people, especially with the bad reviews, you've done your job. And so I didn't realize that even though I was getting really bad reviews, I was getting sales.
And right now, in the day of age of people incentivizing reviews, like I know I don't really trust products on Amazon that don't have any bad reviews. Like, if it's just 20 reviews and they're all 5-star, that's like, that looks a little bit sketchy to me.
About at the beginning of 2018, when a lot of my hard-won reviews were getting taken down from Amazon, because, I had my street team, I had all the regular stuff that you have. I made the conscious decision to kind of shoot myself in the foot and not go after reviews anymore. And my reviews dropped drastically. So did my income. but I was able to weather the storm. And what I started to realize was that going from hundreds of reviews to 30 to 70 reviews of real reviews of people who don't know you, and the verbiage was different. So I had new people that would go, and instead of just reading my Kindle Unlimiteds, they would read all of my backlist. And sometimes they would tell me it was because I knew these reviews were not sycophants.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay. And so, and not all of the reviews were good. I mean, there are people who are just critical of folks they don't know and they judge you harshly.
Yeah.
But the authenticity of the reviews do ring true with people who are looking for, I just want a good read where I don't feel like I've been duped to make the sale.
Yeah. And if a good piece of advice I heard is like, if you're really suffering over a bad review, go read some of the reviews of perennial classics, like things that have reached out and touched people throughout the years. They've got plenty of 1-star reviews too, from people that just didn't get it. And like, some things aren't for everyone. So
Right. Yeah. And that's a good thing. That means that
Exactly.
you have a specific voice and a specific niche that people either they love it or they hate it. And I would rather it be that than the meh, kind of thing. I'm not trying to be a part of the herd. I am trying to be out there where you can see me.
I remember I hated it, like in high school English, James Joyce. Like nearly every English program has some James Joyce work in it. I get why some people like him, but I just could not stand it. But it's just not for me. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go out and write a bad review of James Joyce, but there are people that want to be heard. So
yeah, I have many on my list that I keep to myself because people will be like, I can't believe it. But yeah, I totally get that. And so it lends to going through the different changes. And if you'll permit me, I every time I get an opportunity to speak on a platform, now I find myself trying to hold up the banner for why authors need to understand more about the environment and more about the marketing.
Yeah.
Because prior to me going back to grad school, and Dan already knows this story, but I have 3 master's degrees. It's not because I'm smart; it's because it takes me a long time to learn something. And so, prior to this, my first master's was in Christian theology, education, and counseling. So I did a lot of counseling for churches, but that didn't pay the bills because a lot of times it was for free programs. And so my other master's is an MBA. And so during the day, I was a financial analyst and a marketing pricing person for large corporations, cutting my teeth and learning how to gain market share, how to use pricing strategies, how to use copywriting and the like to sway people through different mediums and understanding the push and the might of a corporation. And it didn't hurt that I had a bachelor's in marketing and an MBA. And so when I came over into this, because I wanted to leave corporate America. And when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hang my shingles and I'm going to go back into counseling because I really like that. Well, then they at the time they were like, well, you're a little long in the tooth and we can't grandfather over your credentials, meaning that it had been too long. And now I had to get a PhD instead of just using my master's. And so that's what led me to this. And so, like I said, I got into the writing self-taught. They start taking off to the point where I'm like, why am I in a 7-year program where I'm not guaranteed to be able to do much with it? Because there's only so many professorships around the world, period. Right. So I'm like, wait a minute. My books at the time, they were starting to pay bills. And I was like, well, by 2013 is when I started making the decision that I was going to leave. And I haven't looked back. It was scary, but I haven't
Yeah,
looked
I
back.
bet.
So I didn't get the nerve up until the beginning of 2014 to go full time. And so since 2014, full time, and hallelujah, I'm still in the house. The light's still on. The internet still works.
Yeah.
you know. And so I said that to say that one of the biggest things that I realized was, yes, there are two jobs that we have, especially as indie authors. Our first job is to know and execute craft at the best of our ability whenever we write a book, because nothing else is the biggest impetus for people to purchase than your execution of great craft,
Right.
because we are entertainers through the format of story. But then the other side of that is, even before you try to get savvy with the business, the accounting, the licenses, and all this kind of stuff, you must understand marketing. And so marketing foundations are important. And how I have tried to put this in a quick little framework is this: research. When you research, instead of researching for what books are selling well on Amazon, pull out of the macro, of the micro environment that you're in of Amazon, and go into the macro environment of the real industry you're in. You're in entertainment, and entertainment is what we do. We don't write stories. And I try to get people to understand that there used to be a time when you could hide behind, I'm an author. If you are an author who expects people to give you money, you're an entertainer.
Yeah.
And just by even changing that around to understand that my competition, at best, my competition is not other authors. My competition is Netflix, e-gaming. I mean, come on now. Animal Crossing is my competition. Anything that's going to take someone's attention when they are seeking escapism, when they are seeking relief, when they are seeking to connect, that's my competition. Competition is Netflix and the like. And so research looks different on that level, because you must keep up with what's going on. So the first thing I would say is pull out and look at them, and then understand that story drives everything. Story even drives who we are. So I did a 3-day intensive a few weeks ago, and the first day I worked on helping the actual authors to understand how to tell their own story, because that's going to be the biggest selling point. Too many times there is a lost opportunity down at the bottom of that Amazon page, where about the author, there's a lot you can do. You can have a compelling story. It doesn't take a long time to tell it, but I just gave you a story. I told you I was in grad school. It was not working for me. Out of desperation, I found this, and I learned that having bad reviews wasn't necessarily a bad thing for my bottom line.
That's a story arc right there. Like, it
Exactly.
is. It's storytelling in the branding and the marketing. Yeah, I think too many people. I do that. Like my bio. I just sent my bio off to a conference. It's like, this bio is horrible. I know it's horrible. I need to redo it. But I hate talking about myself, and I imagine a lot of authors do as well. Do you have any, what tips do you give authors to get there with their description, their author description, or their bio?
Let me see here. I got some notes. Seriously, I'm like,
I bet.
now y'all, I gotta put my glasses on. I might be able to do it off the top of my head, because I do like to put things in an easy framework kind of
Yeah.
thing. But the first thing I would tell people is to go and look at your rock bottom story.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that time that it didn't look well for you. You didn't know how you were going to make it, and yet and still something happened for your good. Also look at those times where it was embarrassing to you and you had to figure out a way to move past the embarrassment. And then look at those times when, and I call this understanding the scars and the wounds stories. So the scars are the stories that you went through some stuff and you got the scar to prove it. But the wound stories are the stories that are still, when you touch them, they still might even be a little angry or bloody.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that are going to ground you into knowing what to tell and share and what to shield. And that's what I call it, sharing and shielding when you're putting your story together. So let me put that in the quick little framework. Rock bottom or embarrassing story, how you made it over, what you learned from it. And then remember to give the stories that gave you that scar. Because what happens when people say, for instance, I do have a scar here. You can't see it, but I hide it. But I have a scar. If people see scars, I don't know what it is. It's just like how did you get that? That's the first thing they want to know. Yeah. And it's naturally engaging. And for people like us who don't necessarily like to talk about ourselves, we don't have to, quote unquote, talk about ourselves, but what we can do is we can share the things that helped us get past the event that caused that scar and how we overcame it to be who we are today. Because that's not talking about yourself. That's sharing testimony that helps other people overcome their issues and their wounds. Now, the reason why I include knowing your wound story or stories is because I never want anybody to get into a corner that they can't get out, because story is very emotional. And if you don't know your boundaries, meaning know your wound story before you start so that you don't start sharing it and then like, oh, I have to stop. Yeah. That's going to give you a lot of complexity to your story, where people are going to have two things: curiosity and concern, because they can hear something is driving this story, whether it be pain, angst, regret, any of those types of the rejection, any of those types of things. But the fact that you now have a story that you can tell with truth and honesty and conviction that has a good outcome, but is still tainted by the realness of what you have gone through or what you continue to go through, it makes it very compelling. And people love that because they gravitate to authenticity. And so I don't want to sound like a motivational poster, but authenticity through story is one of the greatest kept secrets of true marketing.
Oh, I agree 100%. Like, we're seeing the rise of podcasts and the vloggers and everything. I think it's just because they're sharing everything. Like, even like the people streaming games on Twitch. If you had told me we'd be watching people play video games instead of playing them ourselves, I would have been like, that sounds crazy. But I mean, they're sharing everything about their lives and just letting you into their house.
Exactly.
Exactly. Authenticity right now is huge. I think with everyone, but especially like the younger generations right now, because we've had years and years of corporate market speak, and we all kind of tune it out.
Yeah. When you think about how many people don't realize that we no longer have a boundary between us and them, if you will, it amazes you. I am a Black woman from the South. I live in the Atlanta area. I was raised in Louisiana, and I would have never thought that people from Estonia would be interested in what I'm saying. And yet, and still, people in Estonia listen to me every day.
Yes.
And love my story, love what I do, buy my books. And I'm like, who would have ever thought? But it wasn't until I realized this whole thing about the marketing that I decided I'm doing a daily podcast about the stuff I love. I talk daily about wisdom. That is something that I love, that I chase down, and that I like, hopefully, to be able to share with people. And as an aside, because I am daily creating curiosity in who I am and what I have to say, and concern for what I'm concerned about, I build a natural know, like, trust campaign every day. And thus people, at the last part of my notes, I give them, the pen name that I want them to support. And without me even asking, I say, check the show notes, for more information about me. They check it. Dan, I am now to the point where my book sales are not, they're ebook, but my book sales are not just a onesie twosie. My book sales are entire catalogs.
Oh, that's excellent.
But I'm not going to tell everybody, oh, go do a daily podcast, because it's hard.
It's so much work. Yeah.
But it is based on the fact I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. I'm a storyteller. And if we tell story and we expect people to give us good money for that story, shouldn't they know a little bit about your story?
Right.
Yeah.
I think everyone should pick which medium works best for them. Like, not all of them are going to suit you. That's like, can be social media channels. It could be podcasting versus, being active on one of the social media. Do you have any recommendations for like the different mediums, like newsletters? Not everyone has to do a newsletter, but I think they can be important. Does podcasting work for fiction and nonfiction equally? Like, what are your thoughts on some of those things?
I am not able to speak specifically for nonfiction, fiction, as much as I'm able to speak toward understanding content marketing. Because to me, it's not about whether you write nonfiction or fiction, how to connect with people. One of the things I would tell any aspiring author or established author who has stagnant sales, learn how to connect with people. And whichever way or ways you're able to connect and keep up, because just because you're good at something does not mean you're going to keep it up, because you got to be consistent. That is the avenue that I'm going to encourage you to connect with. Now, I have a little cheat sheet. I'm going to try to go through it from my head, so y'all bear with me, because this gray hair is not premature. Okay. So with Facebook, the best thing that I can say right now is to take advantage of their groups. They are really trying hard to make Facebook groups the new membership site. Take advantage of that, because in there, Facebook, although you don't own that group and you can have issues, but if you're wanting to start really interacting with people and see if you can do it, instead of investing in a autoresponder for daily newsletters, start a Facebook group. When you put things out, say, hey, I have a free Facebook group. Come join it. People are more apt to join your Facebook group and get to know, like, and trust you when they see you in the group than they are to give you an email address and allow that boundary between you and them to be what keeps them opening up your emails. If you want to increase email engagement today, at this particular time, the tactic is more so going to be a Facebook group. And you say, oh, Michelle, I'm not on Facebook anymore. That's fine. There is another free option. Now, it's going to take you time to build this option, but because a lot of people are not as familiar with it, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but if you're a gamer, you know this option very well, and it's called a Discord server. It's real easy to set up. Just Google it, y'all. Just Google it. It downloads.
And your gamer fans are already going to be on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Your gamer people are already going to be on it. You can have a Discord server up and going in a matter of an hour. And when I say a matter of an hour, I'm talking about teaching yourself. You can hook in your Patreon. You can hook in Apple and Google Pay. I mean, there's so much that you can hook in. Do you realize that they give you little prompts to be able to program? So say, for instance, you want to have a group of you and other authors. There are little text prompts you can do where each person can run their own daily sprints, and the bot will time it and then tell them to stop and automatically calculate the number of words they wrote based on the inputs that they put in at the start and at the end. I mean, there's so much that can... Yeah, there's so much that can be done just using a free services. Websites. A lot of people are now at the point where every dollar counts. And so everything I'm telling you guys today, Dan, with your permission, I'm trying to keep it where you don't have to buy anything.
Yeah.
You can go to sites.google.com and you can set up a free, hosted by Google, aka Better SEO, to put all your books on. And you can connect their buttons to a Google form to collect their email. And then you can connect that to like a PayPal button and then send them, if they want to buy your books directly, send them the book from your book funnel. They have a free option for book funnel to be able to get monies from that. Say, say for instance, you have a special edition. So let me repeat that one again. That one is, so if you're wanting to start monetizing some of this stuff and you don't want all of those bells and whistles, you can go to sites.google.com and they will give you beautiful sites. If you need to figure out anything more of, all the fanciness, just go to YouTube. Plenty of stuff there, but you can do that. Now, I'm not going to even tell you that there is a way for you to turn that same Google site into an app for your books. That's something that I keep for my students to know how to do. It's not that hard, but you're able to do it, and it's free. Well, the app part is not free, but the site is free, and it's never going to go down because it's hosted by Google. So you don't have to pay any hosting fees. You don't have to pay anything like that. The only thing, if you really want to make it special, is maybe your yearly maintenance for your domain name that hooks into it. Let me see. Okay, so we've talked about, because I like to recap, make sure everybody's with me. Okay, so we've talked about how to start marketing and getting folks to know you. Start with your story. If you don't know how to start your story, start with a rock bottom story, a story that was embarrassing, a story where you got the scars, and then a story that are wounds. And if you don't know what your wound story is, that wound story is where you get to start with something I wouldn't want you to know about me is. That's your wound story. And you'd want to do those different types
your
of
ears perk up when you hear that. You're like, ooh.
Exactly. Your wound story is the one, it's the emotion that will drive the other stories with authenticity, because you're being vulnerable, because it anchors you to who you are, but it allows you to not share that part. So you get your story. The next thing is instead of just trying to build, I know this is counter, and I'm talking fast because I'm looking at the time. I know this is counter to what everybody else is saying. Get a newsletter. Yes, you definitely need a newsletter, but not yet.
Yeah.
You want to learn how to truly drive and understand how to drive converted traffic to you. And that means you need to understand contextual content marketing. The biggest thing right now for authors, because I could do an entire series on contextual content marketing for authors, but the one I'm focusing on right now is the Know, Like, Trust campaign. Let me say that again. Let me put this hand up because okay, Know, Like, Trust. That means they need to know you. They need to like you so that they can trust you, because money is the currency of trust. People don't pay for what they don't trust. And if they do and find out they've been duped, they want a refund. So the Know, Like, Trust campaign, the best and fastest way for you to do it is to see if you can garner a crowd, if you can build a Facebook group that you can sustain. Maybe a Facebook group is not your thing. Like me, it's not my thing. I can talk. Y'all see, I can talk. So I choose to do a daily podcast. Do y'all realize I have people asking me, where's the group I can join? I'm like, I'm trifling. I don't want you in a group because I don't want to talk to you every day like that. But when you start effectively doing it, the Know, Like, Trust campaign gives you almost immediate feedback when it starts to work, because what do? They like you now. So they want more of you, which means they trust you. And therefore, without you even trying, you have people saying, take my money, please, because you've proven that you know story well enough to be able to convey your story in an entertaining and exciting and enlightening way. And they're like, if she or he can get me with a story just about them, I definitely want to read what they write professionally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the content, and the context part of that. I didn't make that clear before because I jumped into the tactics without the strategy. The context of this is get adjacent to people that you want to know, like, and trust. And there's a saying, don't punch up, but don't look down. And so what you want to do is you want to find people who are either your colleagues, your comrades, meaning people that are on par with you, or people who are just a little bit more advanced, meaning they've only gone a few steps further, because what that will do is that will make you step your game up in your writing craft, so that when they do gaze upon you, you won't be embarrassed for them to partake of what you offer.
Yeah.
And so that's going to help you know which social media avenues to go through. For me, I chose podcasting. For some of you, it might be Medium. Now, with Medium requires a certain level of expertise in the craft of storytelling and copywriting. So, a lot of authors say, I'll go to Medium, but they don't take the time to understand copywriting. And copywriting is not about selling, you guys. Copywriting is about persuasive argument. And so if you want to write on Medium through story, you need to understand the concepts of how you start with an argument and break it down and go through it so that it's engaging. You know how to write the sentence to make them read to the next sentence, and by the end of it, you have made a valid point that makes them have either a aha or some kind of visceral, then behavioral, then reflective movement. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of all these different things that I want to say. That 3-step that I just talked about, visceral, behavioral, reflective. Don Norman, who is very instrumental in assisting and consulting Apple products and major product designers around the world for many years. He has a book called The Design of Everyday Things, and that's one of his famous frameworks. It's the 3 ways to design something for people to easily use it. And it is something that I've used for a few years now when I construct my stories to sell. I want to move them through that 3-step process. So the first one being visceral. It's the one that's the instinct, that back of the brain, that primal, oh, me want kind of thing. That's going to affect your presentation, your story, everything on the outside, your book covers, all of that. Then the behavioral, that's going to be the middle brain, where you start to have feelings and emotions about it that are going to trigger behavior of, now, not only me want, me must have. Okay. And then the reflective, once they get the book, you got to have something to say that causes them to think, causes them to see, causes them to interact. And that's the reflective. And so that's what I meant by that. But taking that visceral, behavioral, reflective, when you are attempting to choose how you communicate, whether it be by a daily podcast. And if you go to anchor.fm, that's who I use. They don't charge you, and they will put you up on every platform. So you put your podcast on, you don't even need an engineer to help you. And you can do that because people are like, how do I get started? That's for free, y'all. Yeah. Anchor.fm. You can immediately get started. They've got all the bells and whistles in there, the intro, outro music, and all this kind of stuff. And they automatically engineer your voice to sound the best it possibly can be if you record right within their thing. I'm not getting paid for that. I'm just telling y'all, if you want to go that route. If you go the Medium route, you must understand that you do yourself a disservice if you're just in there, la, 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 and all this kind of stuff. You want to lead people through a persuasive argument full of copywriting and story to get them to a point, or they will feel like they've wasted their time.
It's understanding the channel that you're using to reach people is hugely important. What gets people to react and interact on Facebook is very different than on Twitter. Yeah. And so if you're not spending the time on those channels, then maybe you're better off not really doing a lot on that, because you don't need to be everywhere. Yeah. But you need to be the places where you are effective and the places you like, because if you don't like a channel, it's going to come through in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I just realized, so sorry I took all that time. Just really quickly with the groups, because I get a lot of people that ask about the groups. The groups, the thing that you want to get, the first thing you really want to get, if you want to have a solid group, is you want to write down your own personal manifesto of what you believe, and then you want to condense it down into a power statement, and you want to let the people know when they join your group, this is my powerful manifesto and this is my power statement. And you want to do that so that you can quickly eject the people who don't feel the same way and keep the ones who rock with you that way. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And how many people are just like, oh, I just want to get people to sign up for my newsletter. Like they're just after that, like the number being higher. But that's not what you want. You want people that actually are your readers. Like you want people that are going to click and buy. Like the numbers. I mean, you want to be pruning your newsletter. If people aren't clicking and buying, get rid of them.
Because it stands to reason. Once you have these groups and you put in there, if you would like to get on my newsletter, please go here. You have automatically increased your conversion rates when you do send a newsletter out.
Yep.
Instead of just, getting a whole bunch of untested, unvetted leads.
So we're at the portion where we're going to start taking questions from the audience. I got a couple of comments and questions lined up, but if you've got questions,
really? There are people actually listening?
Oh yeah. So please go ahead and start throwing some more in there. First off, Barbara commented from earlier on. We talked about it's a good perspective on bad reviews.
Yeah.
And so again, just bad reviews are not bad. Like if you get someone to bother to take their precious time and leave any review,
you've done
that's a good thing. Everyone gets bad reviews. Your book isn't going to be for everyone.
Right.
And sticking with reviews, Charles says, what do you suggest to get reviews?
The first thing that I would say to quote unquote get reviews is to ask yourself, why now? Once you can answer why now, meaning why should I drop everything to not only give my time, which I can never get back, read your book, and then process what I thought about it, and then write something publicly. If you can answer that with a good way, then that's the only time. And with that answer, you put that out here of, okay, you guys, not because I need reviews to sell my books and other people can find it, because I've made that mistake. When you tell somebody, you guys, I am driven by interaction. You have spent an intimate amount of time in my mind. If we vibed, tell me and tell the world and go here and put your review. Wouldn't you rather somebody be like, oh, okay, well, I'll do that because I vibe with you too, or it doesn't have to even be that, but be willing to forego, and I know that sounds horrible, but be willing to forego getting a whole bunch of reviews just to trick an algorithm, and instead wait it out and get reviews from people who organically start to work with you. And the best way to do that, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here because it can backfire on you. But the best way right now to do that is to establish a relationship on Twitter.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because Twitter is where the visceral happens. It's where the shock value and the, happens. And if you can get people to track you on Twitter, they are more likely to go read your book and then give you a review. I know that sounds counterintuitive to everything. No shade, no tea on friends over at Booksprout and all of them. Love them. But the real response, you might not get as many, but the quality of the reviews of those people, it's going to help you. So I would say do your best and build your brand on Twitter so that you've earned the right to ask for a review there.
You can definitely spend your life chasing algorithms, but they're all changing all the time and unpredictably. Amazon goes out of their way to try to make sure you're not gaming their system. Same thing with Google, same thing with Apple. So like getting that organic connection and maintaining it is key. Suzanne asked, do you ever feel tempted to change what you're saying to repeat past successes or please certain groups? How do you stay true to what you want to write? Thanks.
Okay, so can you put that one back up? I'm sorry. Do you ever feel tempted to change what you're saying to repeat past? Okay, I thought that's what it said. All right, so Suzanne, thank you for that question, but I'm not going to answer it the way you are probably thinking, because I'm like that. I'm contrarian like that. What I'm going to say is if you will remind yourself that authenticity is the best marketing, it is going to keep you going in the process of growth. Because when you start trying to please people, you have just started the death march to your career. And there's something I've talked about this on my podcast, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from it. When I talk about have you cycled, meaning that only until you've had great success and great failure at what you do can you truly understand why you do it and how to keep doing it. Because if you've only had success, you will always be afraid of failure. But when you go through the cycle of up and down, when you come back around, the sting of failure has been muted, and you could be free to be who you are. If you want to write in a different pen name, if you want to start over, you don't have that fear hanging over your head saying you're going to die. You're never going to come back because you've lived to see another day after the failure. So do not try to appease people to only keep the high, to only keep the wins, because you have no wins without sufficient losses. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Okay.
Got a lot of great questions or comments here. Miss Net said this information about a Google website is priceless. Yeah. And it really is. I mean, so many people are going to find you via Google because it's the most powerful search engine. And there's a way to do the sites.google.com.
Yeah.
Just to get more visibility because it's a Google platform.
Yeah.
Let me go with Fatima. So, there's thanks, Michelle, but that's a great way of looking at reviews. And I agree 100%. And then Suzanne, on that last question, says, thank you, Michelle. That was very helpful information. Yeah, I want to go ahead, and I think we've hit all of the questions so far from the audience. I wanted to know, we talked a lot about marketing. In your role as a coach and teacher, what information outside of selling the book and the marketing angle of it, what do you think authors need to hear most right now?
Wow, there's so much I could say. Well, first of all, I'm gonna keep it to marketing. The first thing I would say is that above all else, you are not marketing a book. I know that that's what you've been told. You are not marketing a book. You are marketing immortality. And once you realize what you're really putting out there to people, it changes the choices you make. And when I say immortality, do you realize that every book you publish becomes part of your estate that is still going to be here once you leave, that your children, your children's children are going to have to manage? If you're doing the crazy marketing just to get a book out and get paid immediately, and you don't take that in consideration, you cannibalize the sales and the reputation of your legacy in the hereafter. That's why when people, my one-on-ones, or if I do a class, and Dan, I while I'm thinking about it, I just need to say this, because every time I've done something recently to talk to people, I get all these emails, people asking when am I going to do my next workshop. And y'all, I'm a working author. I actually write, because I had somebody this morning was like, when are you going to do your next marketing class? And I'll say, just be on the lookout, catch me on, Instagram or something like that. And if I decide to do it, I'll do it. But what I wanted to say is it takes time to market, and most authors are writing and they need the money. I get that you need the money, but your first up to 5 books should be nothing more than sacrificial lambs to teach you while you get a little bit of payment. They should not be there for you to be like, oh, now I can pay my bills. You need to let them be able to go out and do their work, sometimes organically, not asking for reviews, not signing up for a newsletter to be featured, not anything. Going out. And the reason why is because one of the most powerful marketing tools that I wished every author knew was the power of the market itself. The market chooses what it wants, and it doesn't choose it just because you copied something from somebody else, because the market wanted it from them. They don't necessarily want it from you. But if you slow down and take the time to grab little snatches of, okay, so the market likes this or that, but then get authentic and put your own spin on it, remembering that this is your legacy, not only your brand, but your legacy. You'll make different choices and you'll put your best foot forward, and you will get to the point where I like to say it like the Asian proverb. It's kind of like love. The Asians say love should start with a simmer and end with a boil. And a lot of times we want that explosion and don't realize that that explosion cannot be sustained when that's what you start out with. That's nothing more than a burning, falling star. So slow down.
I think you see that in television series and movies, especially where they put everything good in the first one, and then they're like, "Oh, people want more of this," like Lost, like, and they try to drag out that mystery, and they had too much going on, and then it kind of
it
fell
dilutes
flat
it.
on, yeah.
It dilutes it.
That's great advice. Like, it's just there's so many things competing for our attention nowadays. And I think the number one way to compete with that is by sharing yourself, because no one else is going to have your experiences, but other people are going to have experiences like you, and we can feel when something is real versus not.
Oh yeah.
We are at the 45-minute mark. Michelle, I just want to thank you so much for being on. It's been a lot of fun. And I know our audience, like, they've been coming out left and right about how many great tips they got out of this.
Oh,
so
thanks.
Thank you so much. Everyone, if you like this, whatever channel you're checking it out on, Facebook, YouTube, podcast, please leave a like. If you gain something from it, leave a review. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.